I'm Professor B. Davis. This is your San Francisco 49ers. Welcome to 49ers Live tonight with yours truly, Professor B, on Niners Radio 49 for Tuesday, October 15th, 2024. 49ers continue to get ready for work as back to work this week after their mini bye. They're going to be getting ready to take on the Kansas City Chiefs this Sunday at Levi Stadium in Santa Clara for the game of the day. They'll take on the Kansas City Chiefs, a rematch of Super Bowls 54 and 58. And we got some 49ers news. The Niners making some roster moves on Tuesday. We're going to take a look at the roster moves, and then we'll also go back in our 49ers flashback as we celebrate the 35-year anniversary of the 1989 Super Bowl winning 49ers. And of course, they went on to win back-to-back Super Bowls in our final segment. And 49ers announced on Tuesday they have signed safety Adrian Amos and kicker Andres Carlson for the team's practice squad. In order to make room on the practice squad, the team released wide receiver Terrence Marshall Jr. Amos is 6 foot, 214 pounds, originally drafted by the Chicago Bears in the fifth round of the 2015 NFL Draft. Throughout his 9-year career, he appeared in 142 games, 125 starts with the Bears, with the Packers, the Jets, the Texans, registered. He is 650 tackles, 49 passes, defense, 10 interceptions, one return for a touchdown. And he's a 31-year-old native from Baltimore. Amos attended Penn State. And then Carlson, 6'5", originally drafted by the Green Bay Packers in the 2023 draft as a rookie. He'll go on the practice squad. And he's a 26-year-old native from Colorado Springs, Colorado. He attended games and connected 79 of his 110 field goal attempts, 71.8%, and 176 extra points. So that is some of the news of the 49ers, and we'll go into what they are saying on the Niners. We so we're gonna we're gonna actually not go into the videos right now. Nothing from the updates, and Niners get ready to take on the Chiefs on Sunday. So without further ado, now we're gonna go on our segment. Look back to 1989 49ers taking on the Dallas Cowboys in Week 6 of the NFL season. This was the 6th week. The Niners taking on the Dallas Cowboys. As they taking on the Dallas Cowboys in week number 6 of the NFL season. And the game was at Texas Stadium. And I'm going to pull it up on my screen. Taking a look of okay, so we take a look at week number 6. from 1989. And it was on October 15th, 1989. The kickoff time was 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 12 noon Central. Game time weather was 76 degrees. And let me show you that clip from week number 6. The Niners and Cowboys, two teams for the defending Super Bowl champions. Two teams were headed in opposite directions. Taking on the Cowboys at Texas Stadium. And it was Jimmy Johnson's first year as Dallas Cowboys head coach, and Jerry Jones taking over the club in 1989, buying the team, the new owner. Of course, two teams going in this game are headed in opposite directions. The 49ers coming back the previous week. They were able to bounce back after a heartbreaking loss to the Los Angeles Rams at Candlestick Park, and the Niners eking out a competitive, tough 24 to 20 win over the New Orleans Saints at the Superdome in New Orleans. Now they're taking on the Dallas Cowboys in mid-October, and a lot was going on in the Bay Area 35 years ago on October 15th. We'll get to that in a minute. They're playing the Cowboys at Texas Stadium. The Niners coming in with a 4-1 record, and the Cowboys are 0-5, one of their worst starts. And they got a new head coach, Jimmy Johnson, coming from the University of Miami, taking over for the legendary Tom Landry. Jerry Jones, the new owner for the Cowboys. So the Cowboys are in a rebuilding mode. The Niners, of course, are the defending Super Bowl champions, and they're on a mission to go try to win back-to-back Super Bowls. They too got a new head coach, George Seifert, his rookie year as head coach. So let's give you a little clip of the video highlight from 19, or the audio highlight from that game from 1989, and this is from the audio highlight footage from NFL Films. Just gonna pull it to just give you 1 second.
The NFL's frequent flyer mileage leaders continued their road show a week later under sunny skies at Texas Stadium. A Dallas defeat would doom the Cowboys to their worst start in team history, and the relentless 49er defense was only too happy to help their foes reach that dubious milestone. Dallas' troubles started with San Francisco's pass rush and continued against the 49ers' special teams.
So here's the field goal try from the 33, making a 43-yarder by Ruzick. It is blocked. The ball is up in the air. It is taken by Johnny Jackson. It's a foot race. He's to the 30. He's to the 20. He's to the 10. It is a touchdown for San Francisco.
A sore elbow put Joe Montana on the bench, but backup Steve Young kept the Cowboys off balance by relying on the receiving skills of Tom Rathman, number 44. Deadlocked at 14 in the fourth quarter, the Niners finally came alive and took the lead for good. Young fired touchdown passes to tight end Brent Jones, number 84, and a game clincher to Jerry Rice, as San Francisco handed the struggling Cowboys their sixth straight loss of the season. San Francisco's triumphant return home was cut short by the...
Okay, that was that video clip was from NFL Films, of course, the voice by the late Harry Callis, of course. And he also was a longtime voice of the Philadelphia Phillies for baseball, of course. Harry Callis, who left us kind of a little too soon, passing away back in 2009, 15 years ago. So that was another great clip. the Niners end up winning 31 to 14 over. We'll give you the final numbers in that contest from 1989. Niners final numbers. Of course, the game was played on October 15th, 1989. Game time temperature 76 degrees. And some of the leaders of this game, Steve Young threw for 174 yards, 2 touchdown passes to an interception. Former Miami Hurricanes quarterback and Steve Walsh filling in for the injured rookie Troy Aikman. 23 of 36 for 294 yards. He threw a touchdown, 2 interceptions. Steve Young, 11 carries for 79 yards. Tom Rathman, 5 receptions for 64 yards. Michael Irvin, 6 receptions for 60 yards. So that was it. The Niners had 1 turnover. The Cowboys had 3 turnovers in that contest. So that's how it went on that Sunday. So that meant with the loss, with the win, the Niners improved their record to 5-1, while they hand the Dallas Cowboys their 6th consecutive loss. They fell to 0-6, which was their worst start ever in franchise history. So what a tough start for the Dallas Cowboys. And not only that, putting into perspective, also that week leading up to the Niner Cowboy game, it was some other news that went down that week. Of course, the big Herschel Walker trade from 1989, and that was a big deal. That was a big deal in 1989. Herschel Walker, who was a Pro Bowler, probably perhaps their best player on the team, was going to get dealt to the, and that was a big deal. So I want to get into that big trade from 1989, 35 years ago. This was a big deal. This was a big deal. This was a big deal because the Vikings, who were legitimate Super Bowl contenders, who had the top-ranked defense with with Chris Dolman and Keith Ballard, and the Vikings were going for it all in 1989, and looking back, and we're going to take you back in time on that week from 1989. Here is this was the
Chicago Bears. And a quality player in DJ.
which they call it the Great Train Robbery, and it had a lot. We're just trying to find the So I'm gonna try to find. Many people felt that was one of the biggest trades in NFL, blockbuster trades, in-season trades in NFL history, and so we're gonna try to. This is a video from footage from Sportskeeda. We're gonna that blockbuster trade changed the whole course of the franchise in 1989, and we gonna try to show you that video clip. We'll let it um, warm up, but this was a big deal. The Herschel Walker blockbuster trade. Many people say the greatest in-season trade in NFL history. That really I want to get in more depth on that trade. Try to get some more on that information, that blockbuster trade that the Niners were playing the Cowboys that week. But that was one of the biggest news stories of the NFL that week. 1989, Herschel Walker getting traded. It was on October 12th, exactly 35 years, 3 days. This past week of 1989, when that trade went down, many people say it was one of the biggest trades in franchise history, and I want to break down of how that trade went down 35 years ago. And we're just waiting for a video thing to just warm up. We will also give you a recap of week number 6 of the 1989 NFL season scoreboard to Professor B here on 49ers Live tonight. We are in the studios here in Satellite Digital Media Studios here in San Francisco. So get more in depth of that that blockbuster trade. We're just waiting around. So, and who is this? Someone just coming in on our set. There we go. All right. So we're gonna take a look of the take a look more in depth of that blockbuster trade, the Herschel Walker trade from 1989. We're just having a little bit of technical difficulty, so that big Herschel Walker trade in 1989. I want to get more depth of that on Niners Radio 49. Also, of course, in case you didn't know, they missed it earlier in the day. The big blockbuster trade that went down, of course, the big trade that Amari Cooper was leaving the Cleveland Browns. He's going to go to the Buffalo Bills. Look like the Buffalo Bills or the Cleveland Browns are just going to All right, we continue on Niners Radio 49. We'd like to apologize for the delay. We are apologize for the delay. That we are on delay due to our technical difficulties or continuing of our problems with the Wi-Fi cutting in and out. So we apologize for the inconvenience. So we want to do that video of the whole Herschel Walker situation from 1989. From 1989, where this was one of the important days this week from 1989. That trade that sent him to the Minnesota Vikings, and this is from we're gonna this is how that trade went down from 1989. Jimmy Johnson breaking down that trade. It was a big.
Are incapable of murder.
Tyler Perry's new season tomorrow at 9.
We're just gonna give us 1 sec. And this was from breaking down that trade. This is a good thing we're gonna do. Jimmy Johnson, they talk about that big 89 trade. This big blockbuster trade from 1989 had a major impact of the NFL, and we're going to show you that clip. And this is how this is about 1 minute 30. This is like a brief clip.
I used to jog with all my assistant coaches, and we were just kind of discussing, how could we get better in a hurry? Because the way the league is designed, it was very difficult to turn a team around just by drafting. There wasn't free agency at that time, and so I said, what do we have that anybody wants? And we didn't have a very good team. We had one Pro Bowl player, that was Herschel Walker. I kind of just threw it out there. Well, what if we traded Herschel Walker? And of course, all my offensive coaches got all irritated. They didn't like the idea at all. But I did play around with the idea. Then I received a phone call from Ernie Accorsi, who was with the Cleveland Browns, and Ernie said that they were very close to winning a championship. They needed one great player. They needed Herschel Walker, and we talked about a possible trade. I went and talked to Jerry. I said, here's the trade that I have laid out on the table. It's an extremely good trade. We ought to make it, but we should see if we could better it. I said, you pick a few of the teams and you call them. I know certain people, I'll call them, and we'll just see if somebody wants to top this offer. As it turned out, I talked to Mike Lynn with the Minnesota Vikings, and he faxed me a proposal. I tweaked it a little bit, and we made history.
And that's how that trade went down.
This is how to get in shape fast. The best way to burn fat and get shredded is not keto, it's not paleo, it's not vegan, it's not carnivore, and it's definitely not intense exercises like this. This is what 10 pounds of fat looks like. If you want to drop this or more, you got to take your metabolism from this
Okay, yeah, so that was part of that big trade that they got though from 1989 that really changed the course of the of two franchises instantly. Like we were saying, the four the Cowboys were going nowhere. They were, you know, looking at the future.
Jones and Jimmy Johnson, the men who remade America's team.
They had made the big trade with Herschel.
And that big trade was huge.
Jones and Jimmy Johnson, the men who remade America's.
That big trade, that's they call it the Great Trade Robbery, and this was from ESPN 30 for 30 shorts. This was they call it the Great Train Robbery from 1989. We were gonna show you that clip. This was the clip I really wanted to share with you guys. It was this week around this time from 1989. It was one of the biggest trades in NFL history. It really just that altered the course of the franchise. It was who you look back in perspective, it was one of the biggest trades in franchise history. And that trade had so much
that somebody else wants. They say we only got one player.
And then Walker, of course, was their only player. I mean, a lot of the players from the Tom Landry regime go on in retirement. Guys like, I believe, Randy White, who was a future Hall of Famer, who made the NFL's all-decade team of the 80s. And then Tony Dorsett was at the end of his ropes, of course. But this was the trade from 1989 that really that this was the trade that really sent shockwaves to the NFL. Walker goes to the Vikings because they were in, and I think, you know, and this was a trade that was the Cowboys were playing for the future and helped build that dynasty in Big D.
And that somebody else wants. They say we only got one player.
Oh, look at Herschel Walker fight and score!
In exchange for Walker, Dallas will receive a #1 draft pick, plus 6 conditional draft choices over the next 3 years, including 2 first-round picks, 3 second-round picks, and 1 third-round pick.
One agent said it's the biggest trade he has ever seen in the NFL. One owner said it's a great train robbery. But whatever it is, we're happy with it.
We had just traded the only guy that we had on our team that was really any good. And I couldn't believe it.
I don't know what we're going to get, what players receive. I don't know where our offense is going right now or what you're going to see in the summer.
The key is not getting the picks. The key is picking good players with the picks.
Draw play, Smith up the middle. Out to the 5, up to the right, up to the left. Oh, no! Evan Smith. Oh, yes!
Unbelievable run. What did you like? I couldn't understand it at the time, and I'm glad they viewed it differently because that certainly, got us over the hump and hurt.
35. Harper's breaking away. Harper's got midfield.
The Cowboys are going to a Super Bowl.
35. Harper's breaking away. Harper's got midfield.
The Cowboys are going to a Super Bowl.
Again, one hell of a job. And the only thing else I got to say is, how about them Cowboys?
The Cowboys are back on top of the mountain now. They were there in the 70s, fell off in the 80s. They're back on top now, and they should stay there a while. Wow. What a ride it's been.
30 years later, people still always say, well, remember the Herschel Walker trade.
To build that into the dynasty that it was, his eye for talent was a huge difference, and it really changed the course of that organization.
2 in a row. I'll sweep it in. Back to back, baby. Back to back, baby.
Dallas, your Cowboys are still champions.
To get what amounted to 11 or 12 bodies, and some of them #1 picks.
It's not only awful from the Vikings standpoint because they traded away all these pieces that helped them get to an NFC championship game just 2 years before.
His talents did not translate in any way, shape, or form to what the Vikings were doing.
There's never been a trade this clear, this clean, in terms of building up one franchise and sinking the other. This trade equals 3 Super Bowls for the Cowboys. You can't ever say that in NFL history outside of this.
And Dallas, your Cowboys are.
Looking back in perspective, I mean, even though I hate the Dallas Cowboys, in perspective, while the Niners were on their way to winning their second straight Super Bowl, the Cowboys were a team were rebuilding. Yeah, they may have gone 1-15 that year, but that trade sent 2 franchises to opposite directions. The Vikings would go on to win the NFC Central Division title. It was their first division title outright in nearly a decade, unseating the Chicago Bears, who were the class of the NFC Central, had won 5 straight NFC Central titles, Central Division titles between 84 through 88. And then the Vikings, of course, only just 2 years removed from their improbable run to the NFC Championship when they knocked off your heavily favored 49ers in the NFC Divisional Playoffs. The wild card Vikings came within a game of going to the Super Bowl. The Niners got revenge in 88. A lot of people felt they were going to go for it all in 1989, and it turned out for the Cowboys it was a steal. Probably the best thing that could ever happen to them. For the Vikings, it turned out to be snake eyes, and I want to get into who did they end up getting. I could break down who they end up. This was a big deal in 1989 of who they got in that trade. That video is courtesy by NFL Films, the Herschel Walker trade. Here we go. That was one of the biggest trades in maybe the worst post-merger record. They traded away their best player. Believe Walker was the missing piece they needed to make a run to the Super Bowl. The Vikings originally felt that they got the better end of that deal. Instead, it was the Dallas Cowboys used the draft picks acquired in this trade to get players they need to help them win 3 Super Bowls in the 90s. Meanwhile, the Vikings did not make a Super Bowl appearance with Walker. And if you could look at the background, the backdrop, the greatest team ever, the dynasty, this is who they end up getting. This is who the Dallas Cowboys end up getting for Herschel Walker. Walker goes to the Vikings for 3rd round pick, San Diego Chargers 5th round in 1990, Dallas's 10th round pick in 1990, Cowboys 3rd in 1981. Chargers end up getting former Stanford star, former Viking, former Stanford star Darren Nelson. But this is who the players they got back in that trade. Linebacker Jesse Solomon, linebacker David Howard, cornerback Isaac Holt, defensive end Alex Stewart. The Vikings, and they got the Vikings first round pick for 1990. That first round pick the Cowboys got from the Vikings turned out to be Emmitt Smith, future Hall of Famer, greatest rusher all time. They get the Vikings second round pick for 1990. They get the Vikings sixth round pick in 1990. They get the Vikings first round pick in 1991. Who do they get out of that draft? Alvin Harper. They get Minnesota's second round pick, a conditional after cutting Howard. They end up getting Minnesota's first round 1992, Darren Woodson. Minnesota's second round pick in 1992, conditional met by trading Wade Nelson. Vikings third round pick in 1992 because they cut Stewart. The Vikings made the huge mistake. They traded away they mortgaged their future to get Herschel Walker. From the process, wrongly assuming that the Cowboys in 1990 would keep 3 picks from Minnesota that got for the 1990 draft because Dallas was the worst roster in the league. Yes, they were. And they needed some upgrades desperately. They retained players they received instead of cutting or trading and giving them many 1991-92 contingent Viking choices. Minnesota therefore felt that they had got the better end of that deal, not knowing at the time that their head coach Jimmy Johnson was interested in only the draft picks and not the players. At a press conference of the trade, Johnson bragged and committed that the great train robbery, but was criticized by various sports writers such as Randy Galloway of the Dallas Morning News. Johnson waived Stewart in November 1989 and told his coaches not to start Solomon, Howard, or Holt, signaling the rest of the league intention to claim the draft picks. Vikings general manager, the architect, Mike Lynn, eventually made another deal, letting the Cowboys keep 3 players and all the conditional picks in exchange for 2 picks for the Cowboys. Now, this was the aftermath. Dallas used the Minnesota's picks in succeeding years to make trades with other teams. The picks acquired, therefore, Emmitt Smith, future Hall of Famer, Darren Woodson, probably should be a Hall of Famer, Russell Maryland. These players helped the Cowboys win multiple Super Bowls. In other words, the trade of Walker to the Vikings contribute largely to the Cowboys' success in the early 90s for the reason it's been called one of the most lopsided trades in sports history. Let's kind of reiterate who they got. So the Cowboys got the Vikings first round pick in 1990. They used it, part of the deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers, to move up from 21 to 17 overall in the first round 1990. They used the 17th overall pick. They used selector Emmitt Smith. Minnesota second round pick 1990. They used part of the deal to get San Francisco's third round pick in 1990. San Francisco third round pick they used above the deal with Pittsburgh to move 17 overall. Minnesota Vikings sixth round pick 1990 used part of the deal for the LA Raiders to acquire Stan Segmagata, a defensive back. And they got the Vikings first round pick. They gave up first round pick, used part of the deal to get the number 1 overall pick in 1991 from the Patriots. With their first overall pick, they selected defensive tackle Russell Maryland. Minnesota's second round pick 1991 used part of the trade of the Houston Oilers to acquire running back Alonzo Highsmith. Minnesota's first round pick 1992 used part of the deal to get New England's first and second round picks 19 and 37 overall of the 92 draft. 19th overall is part of the deal to get the Atlanta Falcons first round pick 17 overall. 17 overall Atlanta has used for cornerback Kevin Smith. 37 overall from the Patriots they used to select Darren Woodson. Minnesota's second round pick 1992 used part of the deal acquired 2 picks from the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs picks were exchanged with the Redskins. Redskins third pick 58 overall selected Clayton Holmes. Minnesota's third round pick used part of the deal for New England's first and second round picks. And then meanwhile, the 1989 Vikings were eliminated in the divisional playoffs by the eventual Super Bowl champion, your 49ers, for the second straight year. Among the 4 players that the Vikings selected during Dallas's picks, with a trade. Mike Jones spent 2 seasons with the team, and Jake Reed spent 8. And 1991, the Vikings re-signed Darren Nelson, and the player was forced Minnesota, Dallas, and sent him to San Diego in 1989 to back up Walker. Nelson retired after 2 years. Still, the Vikings had not made the Super Bowl appearance since the trade. Walker would have played only 2 more seasons. The Vikings failed to make the playoffs both times in both years. Walker signed with the Philadelphia Eagles for the 1992 season and with the New York Giants in 1995. And then he rejoined the Dallas Cowboys in 1996. 17 years later, in 2007, the trade was still targeted for ESPN's Impact of Free Agency, which was instituted in 1993. Notably, the entire significant trade by taking one of the greatest shortcuts to become a Super Bowl champion. So this was one of the biggest highway train robberies, and it was probably the best thing that could ever happen to. Even though the Cowboys were struggling and they may have been in last place, but you look at the big picture for the long haul. Who won that deal? Who won that? It was and that was the big trade. So that was the that was just the steal of the century, and that helped the Cowboys win the Super Bowl 3 of the next 4 years in the 90s. And
Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson. Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson, the men who
looking at how that impact of that trade was so huge. And that trade kind of was, significant. That was a big thing. You know, looking at the so we're going to show you another clip from that trade. Had a lot to do with that big blockbuster trade. And that was a huge deal. So that was the big trade, the big deal, and the Niners end up winning that game. Going that two franchises were in total opposite ends of the spectrum, and the Niners. We're gonna take a look of also. One of the big blockbuster trades in NFL history. They call it the Great Train Robbery. So we're just really looking into the all right. So we're just trying to find the All right, so let's just take a look of around the NFL before we call it a wrap. So week number 6, it was the Giants over the Redskins, 20-17. Phil Simms threw for 2 touchdown passes. Gerald Rigg or O.J. Anderson, 25 carries for 101 rushing yards. Gerald Riggs was rushed for 91 for the Redskins in a losing effort. So with the loss, Redskins fall to 3-3, while the Giants improved to 5-1. So the Giants in first place with a 2-game lead in the NFC East. It was the Lions over the Tampa Bay 16, and then Herschel Walker rushed for 148 yards. He ran another 47 yards. Had 195 all-purpose yards. And then it was the Oilers over the Bears, 33-28. Warren Moon threw for 317 yards, 2 touchdowns. Mike Tomczak threw for 247 yards, 3 touchdowns, but he threw 4 interceptions. And then Drew Hill led the Oilers, 5 catches for 128 yards. With the win, the Oilers improved to 3-3. The Bears dropped to 4-2. It was the Dolphins over the defending AFC champion Cincinnati Bengals by a score of 20-13. Mark Duper, 5 catches for 129 yards. Dolphins improved to 3-3. The Bengals dropped to 4-2. Falcons over the Patriots 16-15 in Atlanta. And then it was the Saints over the Jets 29-14 as Bobby Hebert threw for 281 yards in the contest.